again with the Fight Critic, and we're talking heavyweights. Wladimir Klitschko versus Tyson Fury. What's your thoughts about that fight, man?
Hopefully it's a very good fight. This is a fight that can easily sell. Tyson Fury on just him talking promotes the fight. And the way I'm looking at it is this is going to be the first time in a long time Klitschko is actually fighting somebody who's now bigger than him, and that's probably going to weigh more than him. And the fact that Tyson Fury isn't the easiest person to wrestle over, but I also have to realize the other part about Tyson Fury is if you can time Fury a lot like what Steve Cunningham did, you can actually drop Fury and hurt him. My thing is, how is he going to adjust to Wladimir Klitschko's power? Because he's going to be facing the biggest puncher that he's probably faced in his entire career in Klitschko. And I know Fury has the Derek Chisora wins. He's coming off the Hammer win. But you're talking about Wladimir Klitschko, who's essentially maybe one of the most underrated, I'm going to say, heavyweights of the modern era, considering what he's been able to do overall. But to me, it should be a good stylistic matchup, considering that they both can try to fight on the inside. It's going to come down to the ref and being able to control the fight.
You made some great points. One thing that I noticed is Tyson Fury is going to have the size advantage as far as his height. And he's just enough of an asshole in the ring where he has like this style where he kind of fights like a little guy. Sometimes he puts his hands down, he crouches over, he gives up his height. I think it's going to come down to who can establish their jab. Now, when you think of jabs on a historical level, Larry Holmes, Ali, Liston, Klitschko, you don't think of Fury. But right now, today, his jab and the reach that he has, I think it will stymie Vlad just a little bit. I think it's going to come down to who can establish their jab in this fight. Now, I think Klitschko has the better overall jab, but like I said, Fury, he throws it from the hip, he mixes it up. And like I said, he gives up his height sometime, and he's not going to be able to take a rest in his fight. He likes to rest, he likes to grab and maul guys sometimes. Klitschko does the same thing. So I think whoever wins this fight is going to come down to who can establish their jab and who wants to be the aggressor. Because Klitschko's not going to be able to do what he did to Povetkin, hold his head down, rest on him, just like Fury. He's not going to do the same things he did with Cunningham. And it's funny that you brought up Cunningham because Jennings fought Vlad, and it was kind of the same thing. Although Cunningham did knock down Fury, Fury got up, he got off the canvas. I thought it was over with. I was like, oh, he's a hype job. He got up and, he won the fight. But Jennings was able to have some success. I think Fury have more success with Wladimir. It's an interesting fight, man. And I think Vlad is a little bit past his prime, but the heavyweights of today aren't as good as they used to be. So him past his prime is probably still good enough to eke out a decision. But this is going to be an interesting fight, man. I'm just curious to see who establishes their jab and who's going to be the aggressor. I think Klitschko is stronger than him. I think he's physically stronger, but you got two big guys, man. And once they start pushing on each other, I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting fight.
I also think what's going to be another key is how they fight through clinches. Because we're going to get to a point where if both the guys are holding, that the ref is just going to tell them, fight through it or let them go. And, Klitschko is one of those guys that likes to let the ref break it. And if there's an instance where he, tries to hold Fury and the ref says break it, Fury's going to do whatever possible to break that clinch and try to hit him.
He might even imply when they're clinched like that, take his free hand and just start banging away on Wladimir. And things like that, it might not be effective as a fan. You might sit there and well, that's not doing anything. But to judges, they may look at it like, oh, well, at least he's trying to fight out of the clinch. So I'm going to award him for that.
Yeah, because the one thing about Wladimir, he doesn't have as much athleticism as Vitaly did. Because that's the thing about that's what makes them different between each other. Is that Vitaly had more versatility compared to Wladimir. Vitaly was able to stay on his toes a lot and move around. He didn't have to rely on having to hold guys or to stand his ground and put his weight on guys. But Wladimir, he's been able to get away with it because he's always been, he's always had the size. I remember when they were first coming up and they thought that Wladimir was the modern day heavyweight. fight in terms of height and size. And now he's fighting a guy who's really just bigger than him, that has the ability to try to bully him. But to me, I think that when it comes down to that fight, and I haven't done my official breakdown, experience is going to play a big part. And that's the one thing that Wladimir has an enormous amount of, is that he's gonna be able to do the little things at times that he knows that he can try to get away with.
Yep. And another point that I want to make is Wladimir usually has problems with guys that try to come in there and steamroll him, like how Corey Sanders did. Although Layman Brewster didn't steamroll him, but when he picked up in that fight, he was coming forward.
Yeah.
Fury isn't that type of guy. Yep, Sam Peter, same thing. Fury isn't that type of guy. He likes to sit back, and I don't know if he can outthink Wladimir. And your point about Vitaly, a lot of fans, man, believe it or not, think Wladimir is the more athletic. And I think they're looking at body type and not how they fight. If you look at their bodies, you'll say, oh, Wladimir is more explosive. Look at his body. But Vitaly fight with his hands down, move his head.
Yeah.
He can switch it up and give you different looks. He's not just standing there looking like a robot. And Wladimir has a tendency to just sit there and look pretty predictable. And
the thing about them is that a lot of people, even though like Wladimir has the more developed side, Vitaly was able to generate power while being able to be mobile. With Wladimir, he can't do that at times. He can put certain punches together, but with Vitaly, he can follow up and distribute his power evenly because that's the kind of style that he was used to always fighting like. And he had better defense overall. You hardly ever saw Vitaly getting hit as flush and as clean as he did.
Yep. It's a good point. And the thing about Vitaly is when he had that debacle with Chris Bird, he pretty much was on a mission, man, to where in that Lennox Lewis fight, that's why it's kind of off subject. That's why when Collazo said he couldn't see, the first person that came to mind was Vitaly Klitschko. If Collazo couldn't see, I don't know what Vitaly's vision was when he fought Lennox Lewis because half his face was getting ripped off.
Yeah, especially like because when I did my video, I actually had a picture of Vitaly up, and like on like my video, I was just like, "You talking about you can't see?" Like Vitaly had half his eye hanging off.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that also reminds me. I remember when Fernando Vargas fought Shane Mosley, and he had a hematoma like on his eye, and like it just looked like he was growing a planet.
That was the fight he got knocked out, right?
Yeah, yep. and that fight was a stoppage by during the fight. I'm surprised they let that fight go on the way his eye was. So it wasn't like he didn't want to fight because he couldn't really see. It was just because he wanted to get back in there. But when you talk about you want to like if you can't really see and you guys can stop the fight, I mean at that point I'm kind of like questioning like your will, like you're not willing to go back out there.
Yeah, I think I said that's the fight he got knocked out. No, he got stopped. They stopped it for that. Then the next fight was a fight. Mosley caught him with that hook, right, and knocked him out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the second fight that was a knockout. The first fight was the stoppage because of the eye.
Yep.
I'm just like, we didn't see bad cuts. I mean, the Lundy Herrera fight that was this weekend, where dude's eyelid was starting to hang off like that. That's a stoppage that you have to stop it because by then he had tissue that was starting to show on the guy.
Yeah.